Somewhere along the line, you got really good at not feeling. Not noticing, not admitting, not letting anyone see. You became a professional at walking around with emotions tucked neatly into boxes no one else could open. Anger, sadness, longing, fear. They all have their places, carefully organized so that you could function, so that you wouldn't rock the boat, so that life wouldn't feel unbearably heavy. And at first, it works. Suppression feels like control. Suppression feels like survival. Suppression feels like the adult version of holding your breath until someone stops yelling. And yet, the thing about emotions is that they're remarkably persistent. They don't simply vanish when shoved into compartments or silenced behind your polite face. They linger, like unfinished sentences, or a song stuck in your head that you can't quite place. They sneak into your body, tighten your chest, knot your stomach, make your jaw ache. They appear in moments you'd least expect, sometimes disguised as irritability, fatigue, restlessness, or inexplicable tension. And every time that happens, the suppression strategy shows its limits. It's almost laughable when you look back, all the ways you've been clever about hiding, avoiding, and controlling. The extra work you did to keep busy, so you wouldn't notice a gnawing sadness. The social performance you perfected to mask anxiety or frustration. The perfectionist tendencies, the endless planning, the jokes you used to deflect, the constant explanations you gave to prevent anyone from catching a glimpse of what really swirled inside. In hindsight, it's like watching a magician perform the same trick for years on an audience of one, and realizing the trick was exhausting. But that exhaustion isn't weakness. It's information. Your body, your mind, your heart, they're signaling that suppression has been the main strategy for too long. And acknowledging that doesn't mean giving up control or becoming overwhelmed by emotion. It means noticing that emotions, even when inconvenient or uncomfortable, have something to teach, something to guide, something to release. If it feels safe, pause for a second. Let yourself notice how often suppression has been your default. No shame, no judgment, just observation. Recognize that it was a strategy, a tool that helped you survive. And now, it's time to consider that survival alone is not living fully. There's a difference between keeping yourself safe and shutting yourself down, and that difference is essential. Humor, of course, has a role. The ridiculousness of suppressing emotions to the point of absurdity. The way you might have laughed at a joke you didn't even find funny, just to hide frustration. The way you nodded politely while your chest felt like it was stuffed with balloons that didn't want to fit. That humor isn't trivial. It's proof that even while suppressing, you were aware enough to notice the absurdity, enough to survive, enough to someday shift. Breaking the habit of emotional suppression begins not with grand gestures or dramatic revelations. It begins with tiny permissions. Let yourself sigh without apology. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop. Notice when a thought or feeling rises and give it a name, even if only silently. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. I'm anxious. That simple act of labeling is revolutionary in its quiet power. It's the first small crack in the walls that suppression built, the beginning of reclaiming your own emotional territory. And the freedom in this practice is subtle but profound. You don't have to spill your heart to the world. You don't have to cry in public or confess every longing. You only need to notice, acknowledge, and allow yourself to experience what rises without judgment. You might whisper it to yourself, write it down, hum it, pace it, or even laugh at it. Each act is valid. Each act teaches the body, the mind, and the heart that emotion is not dangerous. That feeling is not weakness. That existing fully includes experiencing the entire spectrum of human depth. If this feels safe, stay. Let yourself sit with the recognition that suppression has been a survival tactic, not a flaw. That it's okay that it was necessary for so long. And now, for the first time in a while, consider that life doesn't have to be lived in silence. You can let feelings rise gently, gradually, without fear that they will consume you. The courage isn't in dramatic display. It's in noticing, permitting, and returning to yourself again and again, even if only for a few breaths at a time. And the humor, again, is a gentle companion. The awkwardness of letting a tiny irritation show. The discomfort of naming a sadness that has lingered for months or years. The way a smile might feel strange when it's mixed with tears. These contradictions, these absurd juxtapositions, are part of being human. Suppression may have taught you discipline, cleverness, and endurance, but releasing it teaches you authenticity, presence, and trust in yourself. Notice how often suppression has disconnected you from your own body. Tension in the shoulders, shallow breathing, clenched jaw, restless legs, all subtle reminders that emotion has been waiting, patient, insisting, unavoidable. By simply acknowledging these signals, you begin to reclaim communication with yourself. And that communication is the foundation for genuine connection, with yourself first, and then with others. When you allow yourself to feel internally, you are more capable of showing up externally, more capable of presence, intimacy, and authenticity. Breaking the habit of suppression is gradual. It doesn't happen overnight. There is no timeline, no checklist, no single breakthrough. It's a series of small acts, letting a thought or feeling exist, noticing it, naming it, sometimes expressing it quietly, sometimes just witnessing it internally. Each act softens the walls built over years, opens a crack for understanding, for clarity, for release. And eventually, these cracks expand into windows, allowing light, air, and life to circulate where it was once blocked. Stay here a little longer. Breathe. Let your heart expand into the space you've been avoiding. Let the mind notice the subtleties of emotion without panic. Let your body remember what it feels like to unclench, to relax, to exist with feeling rather than in spite of it. Each small acknowledgement is a quiet act of rebellion against the habit of suppression, a reclaiming of your emotional autonomy, a step toward presence, honesty, and vitality. And the final, essential insight begins to settle. Suppression was never a solution, it was a strategy. And strategies can be unlearned, replaced, softened, or transformed. You don't have to fight your emotions, hide them, or censor them to survive. You only need to allow them to exist, to move, to teach, to guide. That is the essence of emotional freedom. The courage to notice, the patience to allow, and the understanding that feeling fully does not make life unbearable. It makes it profoundly, vividly alive. Suppression has a way of creeping into every corner of your life without you noticing. At first, it seems harmless, keeping a smile plastered, avoiding tears in public, brushing irritation under the rug, laughing too quickly to hide sadness. But over time, it becomes a habit, a default mode that shapes your responses, your relationships, even your sense of self. You become skilled at compartmentalizing, at editing your reactions, at convincing the world, and yourself, that the inner storm doesn't exist. And the irony is, the storm never truly goes away. It only waits, patient, persistent, testing the walls you've built. You might catch yourself in subtle ways. A tension in your shoulders that won't release. A tightness in your chest when someone asks a simple question. A flicker of frustration that bubbles over inappropriately. A sudden irritation at the smallest inconvenience. These are the body's way of saying, I am still here. I feel. I am not gone. Emotional suppression doesn't erase the feeling. It just relocates it, storing it in corners of the body, the mind, the subconscious, where it simmers quietly. And the more you ignore it, the more it accumulates, until it shows up in moments that seem random, disproportionate, or even embarrassing. Humor often creeps in, absurd and subtle, when you recognize how elaborate suppression has become. The way you nod and smile while a joke lands flat because your mind is busy managing grief. The endless tidying, organizing, or small compulsions to distract yourself from sadness or anxiety. The irony that you can appear calm, collected, and perfectly composed while internally juggling a dozen unspoken feelings. That humor isn't trivial. It's proof that you are alive, aware, and resilient, even while hiding. Breaking the habit of suppression starts with noticing these patterns without judgment. Start small. Pay attention to the physical signals in your body. The tight jaw, the shallow breathing, the restless legs, the subtle tremor in your hands. Notice what triggers them. Notice when you instinctively redirect your attention, check your phone, organize, or distract yourself to avoid the discomfort. This is not about criticism or shame. It's about awareness, the first step toward reclaiming your emotional life. If it feels safe, linger for a moment. Let yourself sit with the recognition that suppression has been a tool, a strategy, a survival tactic. Acknowledge that it was useful, necessary even, but that it is no longer the only option. Emotional freedom is not about recklessness, it's about presence. It's about allowing feelings to exist without fear, judgment, or control. And the small, subtle permission to feel is revolutionary in its quietness. There's power in small acts. Let yourself sigh when the chest feels heavy. Allow a tiny flicker of irritation to be noticed instead of buried. Whisper softly to yourself, "I feel this." Even silently, even privately, this is enough. These small acts are the beginning of dismantling suppression's walls, one brick at a time. And the beauty of it is that there is no timeline. You do not have to flood the world with emotion. You do not have to become dramatic, tearful, or explosive. You only have to start noticing, naming, allowing, and gently, gradually inhabiting your feelings. Subtle humor continues to accompany this journey. The awkwardness of feeling a small irritation and realizing you've spent years ignoring it. The strange satisfaction of finally acknowledging a sadness that lingered silently for months. The ridiculousness of realizing how many tiny ways you've been diverting, avoiding, and editing your inner life. Laugh softly at yourself. It's not mockery, it's acknowledgement, relief, and humanity all in one. Emotional suppression often damages connection, both with yourself and others. When feelings are consistently hidden, relationships feel performative. Conversations feel scripted. Laughter and smiles are rehearsed. Intimacy becomes a careful negotiation rather than a natural flow. Breaking suppression, even in tiny, private ways, allows you to reconnect internally first. Once you are attuned to your own emotions, even in subtle moments, you naturally become more present with others. You respond authentically rather than performatively. You laugh genuinely. You show up fully, without armor, without filters, and it transforms connection in ways subtle but profound. If staying here feels safe, linger. Notice the intricate ways your mind and body have learned to manage discomfort. Recognize that suppression was never evil. It was intelligent, clever, human. And now, you have the option to respond differently, to permit feeling, to practice presence. Even brief pauses, a few seconds of attention, or a whispered acknowledgement of emotion accumulate into resilience. They create the foundation for freedom, authenticity, and depth. Breaking suppression also requires patience. The habit is deeply ingrained. You may notice yourself slipping back into old patterns, distracting, redirecting, editing, concealing. And that's okay. The act of noticing the slip is itself a victory. Awareness interrupts the automatic cycle and slowly rewires the relationship you have with your emotions. Over time, the gaps between suppression shrink. The walls soften. The voice of the heart grows stronger, clearer, more patient, and easier to hear. There is a gentle power in allowing small emotional expressions to exist. Let a sigh linger. Let a tear fall privately. Let yourself laugh at an uncomfortable memory or frustration. Let your chest unclench, your jaw soften, your shoulders relax. These acts, seemingly insignificant, quietly shift the interior landscape. They prove that feeling is not dangerous, that vulnerability is not weakness, that existing fully requires both attention and care. And as these small acts accumulate, life begins to feel more vibrant. You notice subtle details you once ignored, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the texture of a favorite blanket, the nuance of a conversation with a friend. Presence blooms where suppression once dominated. Emotional responsiveness returns not as chaos, but as clarity, groundedness, and gentle insight. You begin to understand yourself with more depth, patience, and compassion. The freedom grows gradually, subtly, imperceptibly at first. You realize that emotions can coexist with daily life. They do not have to dominate, disrupt, or overwhelm. You can feel fully while moving through ordinary moments. You can notice frustration without acting impulsively. You can acknowledge sadness without being consumed by it. You can allow joy to exist without guilt. And in this coexistence, suppression loses its power. It is no longer default, it becomes optional. Stay here. Let yourself breathe with this realization. Feel the soft expansion in your chest. Notice the subtle weight lifted as you begin to permit feeling. Each tiny act of acknowledgement, whether private, humorous, awkward, or silent, is a thread weaving together a life lived more fully. Presence replaces armor. Awareness replaces distraction. Authenticity replaces habit. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, trust begins to bloom. Trust in your ability to sit with emotion. Trust in your ability to survive feeling. Trust that vulnerability does not destroy you but strengthens, softens, and connects you to yourself and to others. Each sigh, each whisper, each private acknowledgement, each laugh at the absurdity of it all is a step toward that trust. Stay here a little longer. Let the weight of suppression dissolve gently. Let the mind rest from its vigilance. Let the body remember what it feels like to unclench, to soften, to exist without editing. Let the humor, the humanity, the absurdity, and the resilience mingle in quiet recognition. Each moment you allow yourself to feel, however small, is revolutionary. Each acknowledgement is a reclaiming of your emotional sovereignty, a step toward authenticity, and a soft, steady liberation. Eventually, there comes a quiet moment when the walls you've built around your heart begin to soften. It doesn't happen with fireworks or fanfare. It happens in a subtle sigh, a fleeting awareness, a gentle recognition that the feelings you've long ignored or locked away are not enemies. They are messengers, teachers, guides. And for the first time in a long while, maybe years, you notice that they are not dangerous. They are not fragile. They are not threats. They are proof that you are alive, that you have endured, and that you are capable of greater presence than you've allowed yourself to believe. The irony is almost humorous when you think about it. All those years of careful control, hiding, perfectionism, clever diversions, they were all brilliant strategies to survive. And now, here you are, slowly unlearning them, discovering that life feels richer, lighter, and more vivid when you simply permit yourself to feel. That laughter in the middle of sadness is not wrong. That tears in the middle of laughter are not shameful. That every nuance of human emotion can coexist in layers, textures, contradictions, without undoing you. If it feels safe, pause. Let the chest rise and fall with awareness. Let your shoulders relax. Let your mind soften around the edges of its vigilance. The habit of suppression has been clever, but it was never necessary to survive the fullness of life. What was once dangerous, unbearable, or inconvenient is now approachable. And that approachability, that quiet courage, is a kind of freedom that has nothing to do with perfection or performance. It has to do with honesty, presence, and gentle self-trust. Humor again slips in quietly. The absurdity of having spent so long pretending that feelings could be ignored. The ridiculous ingenuity of hiding, suppressing, and redirecting attention to everything but the heart. The strange, subtle relief in realizing that the very strategies that once felt like armor are no longer required. You can laugh softly, not at yourself, but with yourself. It is a celebration of resilience, a nod to the complexity of being human, and a reminder that survival and presence are not mutually exclusive. And in this soft awareness, the body begins to settle. The chest unclenches. The jaw loosens. The shoulders drop. Tension that you had carried for years starts to dissipate, and the rhythm of breath, once shallow or interrupted, becomes full and flowing. You notice that the heart, which once recoiled from vulnerability, now pulses with quiet strength. It remembers what it feels like to live fully, to exist with both light and shadow, to embrace the messy, contradictory, unpredictable nature of emotion. Stay here a little longer. Let yourself sink into the subtle relief of acknowledgement. Let the mind observe without judgment. Let the heart whisper its truths without expectation. You may notice a gentle laughter rising, a warmth spreading through the chest, a tingling sensation of liberation that comes not from external validation, but from internal recognition. The suppressed emotions, once boxed and hidden, now have space to breathe. They do not overwhelm. They do not demand. They simply exist, and in existing, they teach you how to exist more fully, more tenderly, more honestly. The courage here is quiet. It is not dramatic or performative. It is in allowing yourself to feel without hiding, to recognize without reacting, to witness without controlling. Each small acknowledgement, each sigh, each whisper, each moment of presence is revolutionary in its own gentle way. You begin to trust that feelings are not chains but companions, that vulnerability is not weakness but strength, that inhabiting your emotions fully does not unravel you, it grounds you. Connection begins to deepen, both internally and externally. As you release suppression, even subtly, you notice the world more vividly. Conversations become richer, laughter more genuine, silence more comfortable. You no longer operate on autopilot. You respond with awareness. You engage with authenticity, and the people around you, whether consciously or unconsciously, feel the shift. Presence attracts presence. Courage inspires courage. Honesty begets honesty. And this, too, is part of the quiet liberation of letting go of suppression. If it feels safe, remain in this recognition. Let it expand, filling small spaces you didn't even realize were empty. Let your body, your mind, your heart remember that life is meant to be felt fully. Let your chest rise and fall with gratitude, curiosity, and soft attention. Let the subtle absurdity, the quiet humor, the persistent resilience of being human mingle with relief, tenderness, and calm. These are the moments that quietly, invisibly, reshape the way you move through the world. And slowly, the most profound truth emerges. The habit of emotional suppression was never permanent. It was never your identity. It was a strategy, a tool, a temporary shield. And now you have learned a different way. You have learned to allow. You have learned to notice. You have learned to exist fully with the nuances of your own heart. This learning is gentle, patient, and unstoppable. The freedom it brings is subtle but profound, like a soft light breaking through a long night. Breathe here. Let the relief settle. Let your chest expand, your mind soften, your heart open. The walls that once contained your emotions now shift into windows. Through them, life, connection, and presence flow freely. You can see yourself more clearly. You can feel more deeply. You can exist without hiding, without armor, without fear. And that existence, in its tender, ordinary, miraculous way, is enough. Stay here. Let yourself be present with every heartbeat, every sigh, every pulse of feeling. Let your body, mind, and heart harmonize in quiet recognition. You do not need to suppress, to edit, or to hide. You only need to allow, to notice, to breathe. And in that allowance, the full spectrum of human life, light, shadow, grief, joy, longing, laughter, becomes not a threat but a companion. It is a path to freedom, intimacy, and authenticity. The beauty, finally, is that this freedom is yours quietly, persistently, unconditionally. You can return to it any time, in small pauses, in private moments, in gentle acknowledgments. You have discovered that feeling fully does not undo you, it completes you. That acknowledging the heart's voice is not a weakness, it is the truest strength. That life, messy, imperfect, contradictory, and unpredictable, is meant to be lived fully and tenderly. So stay here. Let the heart expand. Let the mind soften. Let the body remember. Let humor, humanity, and grace mingle in quiet awareness. Feel fully, laugh softly, breathe deeply, exist with courage. The habit of suppression has loosened its grip. You are awake. You are present. You are alive. And in that, all the subtle, messy, tender beauty of life can finally reach you.